5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice. This week's pearl is called Strengthening the Third Leg. Hello, this is Dr. Brian Morris, and this is 5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice, where you will learn the tools to provide exceptional care for your patients. This is the weekly podcast where you will be introduced to time-tested, evidence-based patient care strategies that aren't always taught in schools or training programs, but are nonetheless crucial for success in clinical practice. And each podcast episode is only about 5 minutes in length. I've been practicing internal medicine for 20 years. I went to medical school at Johns Hopkins, I trained at Yale, and I previously held a teaching position at Harvard Medical School. I currently practice medicine and hold a teaching appointment at UCLA Medical School here in Los Angeles, where I teach these patient care strategies to medical students, house staff, doctors, and other healthcare providers. This week's pearl is called Strengthening the Third Leg. In podcast number 5, we discussed the clinical framework of the four-legged stool, where the four legs of the stool represent the four components of healthcare that contribute to each patient's overall health. The first leg represents medications and supplements. The second leg represents surgeries and procedures. The third leg represents self-care, such as nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management. And the fourth leg represents relationship care, the sum total of all of our personal and work relationships. The idea is that we want to help patients optimize each of the four legs of the stool. If one leg becomes weak, the entire stool can topple over, and metaphorically, the patient's health can deteriorate. This week, let's focus on leg 3, or self-care. So this involves nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management. How do we help our patients to practice optimal self-care, or the third leg of the stool? How do we help our patients strengthen that leg? How do we help them to get the best nutrition, exercise consistently, sleep well, and practice good, healthy stress reduction techniques on a consistent basis? This can be a very tricky process, but let's simplify things. Practicing proper self-care is comprised of 2 steps. These steps are, number 1, practice, and number 2, integration. What do I mean by that? First, practice. No matter what kind of health practitioner you might be, there will be certain habits that you want your patients to practice. You might want them to eat a certain way or exercise a certain way. You might want to help them improve their sleep habits. Perhaps you think they have sleep apnea as one example. You'll want your patient to learn a new healthy habit, no matter which one it might be. The first step is for your patient to practice that habit. Your job as a clinician is to help your patient find healthy ways to consistently practice that habit. You'll need to brainstorm with your patient. For example, can the patient exercise in the morning, or would an evening exercise session work better? Should the patient walk or swim or bike or join a gym? Once you and your patient have settled on a plan to implement the habit, in this case exercise, your patient needs to practice. Consistently practicing a habit is pivotal to having an action become a permanent habit. Finding a partner can help as well, as support is so important when someone is trying to learn a new habit. So the first step to improving self-care is practice. Help your patient find ways to consistently practice the habit you're trying to teach. The second step is called integration. What does this mean? The habit that the patient is practicing needs to become fully integrated into the patient's daily and weekly schedule, so that the habit becomes a part of his or her routine, just as showering or brushing teeth or eating a meal or watching Sunday NFL football might be. Becoming a part of the daily and weekly routine is critical, so that not doing that habit is no longer an option. Daily, consistent, sustained practice eventually leads to integration. The habits will ultimately become fully integrated into the patient's life and then will be likely to stick. The key to strengthening and reinforcing the third leg of the stool, or the self-care leg, is practice and integration. Practicing healthy habits on a consistent basis and then finding ways to integrate that habit into the daily and weekly routine. Help your patients find ways to practice healthy habits that you're teaching and help them integrate them into their lives. Achieve this, and you've gone a long way in helping them reach their health goals. In clinical practice, I usually pick 2 habits at a time with each patient. I try to find 2 habits that would help improve the patient's health and are also realistically achievable for that patient. Once these 2 habits have been practiced sufficiently and become fully integrated, can we then move on to another 2 habits? And that's the way we build habit upon habit. 2 at a time. 2 habits is usually the right number of habits to work on at any given time. 3 is usually too much for most patients to integrate. So I usually pick 2 habits at a time. With time, patients can then build health habit upon health habit, just like they were building a wall full of healthy, strong bricks. Small, practical, achievable habits are the key. Small steps that over time lead to big results. Practice and integration, the 2 keys to building strong self-care habits and a strong third leg of the stool. Let's keep the dialogue going. Let me know what you think of this week's Pearl for Clinical Practice. Post your comments and experiences on the 5 Minute MD Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter at Brian Morris MD. You can email me at drmorris@5minutemd.com. That's Dr. Morris, Morris, at 5minutemd.com. And of course, you can visit us anytime on our website, 5minutemd.com. Let your friends know about the podcast and make sure that you are subscribed on iTunes. When you subscribe to our show on iTunes, you will receive new pearls as soon as they are posted to iTunes. Thank you so much for listening. This is Dr. Brian Morris. I will see you at the next 5.